Welcome to Canadian Football League Weekly, presented by the World of Football. Each week, we recap the games played up north in the CFL, and we also look ahead to next week's games. Our mission here is to educate American football fans on the teams and players in the CFL in the hopes that they will come to love the league as much as we do. I'm Randy Snow, and I'm joined by my son, Adam.
Hey there, welcome back this week, Dad. I hope you had fun down all the way down in Florida just to come back up to Michigan to talk Canadian football.
That's
I know
right.
you love to do it.
Had a good time, and got a little surprise at the end of the show. So let's
Oh,
let's just get right into this last week in the CFL, week 21,
yeah.
before the
Hard to
playoffs
believe
start.
it. We 21 weeks we've done this show. This is
Yeah,
a long season.
yeah,
Hard to believe it's
we've
over.
watched a lot of Canadian football in years past, but I think I've watched more games this year because of this show. If I wasn't actually watching the game, I watched all the highlights so that we could do this. So yeah, we started back in May, and here it's almost Halloween, and the regular season's over, but we still got a couple weeks to go, and the Grey Cup game. So let's just get right into week 21 in the CFL. On Friday night, it was the Hamilton Tiger Cats at the Ottawa Red Blacks. In the first quarter, Braylon Addison caught a touchdown pass to give Ottawa a 7-3 lead. In the second quarter, DeAndre Smith caught a touchdown pass, and Hamilton tied the score at 10-10. But Ottawa's Jalen Acklin added a touchdown catch that extended the Red Blacks' lead to 20-13. In the third quarter, Hamilton running back Greg Bell had a 21-yard touchdown run, and the Tiger Cats regained the lead 22-20. But in the fourth quarter, Khalil Pimpleton put the Red Blacks ahead for good with a beautiful 65-yard touchdown catch and run as Ottawa wins the game 37-31. Ottawa quarterback Drew Brown completed 26 of 38 passes for 445 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. Wide receiver Khalil Pimpleton from Central Michigan University had 6 catches for 167 yards and a touchdown, and wide receiver Dominic Rhymes had 6 catches for 115 yards. Kicker Lewis Ward was 5 for 5 on field goals, the longest from 47 yards. For Hamilton, quarterback Bo Levi Mitchell completed 25 of 36 passes for 425 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Running back Greg Bell ran the ball 11 times for 91 yards and a touchdown. And running back Ante Litre carried the ball 10 times for 28 yards and a touchdown. Wide receiver Stephen Dunbar had 9 catches for 180 yards. Kicker Mark Leggio was 4 for 4 on field goals, the longest from 46 yards. Yeah, a few notes that I've got for this game. Ottawa snapped a 5-game losing streak thanks to a
Yeah.
goal line stand there at the end of the game. I think they had first and goal within the 5-yard line, and they stopped them on 3 straight plays to save the win. So it was really close at the end. But yeah,
Yeah.
Ottawa got that win. A few stats from the game, or a few accomplishments, I should say. Hamilton wide receiver Stephen Dunbar surpassed 1,000 yards receiving in the season, and Hamilton quarterback Bo Levi Mitchell set a new single-season franchise record for passing yards with the Tiger Cats, 5,451 yards. That's 81 yards more than Henry Burris's previous record that he set with the team back in 2012.
Impressive.
Yeah,
Absolutely
it was.
impressive. And that's 2,000-yard receivers also that they had, because last week Tim White got his 1,000 yards receiving on the season. So,
Yeah,
I mean, obviously Bo Levi can't do it on his own. Having 2 receivers with 1,000 yards is a pretty nice accomplishment. Too, little feather in your cap, despite the fact that you're not playoff
yeah,
bound this year. But hopefully something they can build on going into next year.
yeah. All these games this week, people were setting individual records on teams that aren't even going to be in the playoffs. So it's kind of bittersweet that they had a great season, but team wise, they didn't do so well.
Yeah, it's what happens, and I mean, it's a long season too. So I mean, anything could have happened, but unfortunately, they'll be outside looking in. And like I said, this is just stuff to build on for next year. I mean, keep
Yep.
keep those receivers around Bo Levi, and we'll see what happens next year. Maybe they can get the rest of the team right, and then we'll be talking about the Tiger Cats making a deep playoff run next year.
Yeah.
All right. Also, Friday night saw the Toronto Argonauts take on the Edmonton Elks. In that first quarter, Javon Leake caught a pass from quarterback Trey Ford and ran 67 yards for a touchdown to give Edmonton a 6-3 lead. In the second quarter, Toronto quarterback Nick Arbuckle threw a touchdown pass to Jake Purslow, and the Argonauts had a 10-6 lead. In the third quarter, Toronto running back Deontay McMahon scored on a short touchdown run, and the Argos extended their lead to 20-9. Then in the fourth quarter, Eugene Lewis caught a touchdown pass, but Toronto still led 20-15. Edmonton running back Justin Rankin added a touchdown run, and the Elks took the lead 23-20. McMahon scored his second touchdown of the game, this time with a pass, catch, and run, and Toronto was back on top 27-23. With 34 seconds left, Ford connected with Zach Mathis on a 40-yard touchdown catch and a 30-27 Edmonton lead. But Toronto kicker Lyram Hiralahu made a 16-yard field goal as time expired, tying the score at 30 apiece, sending this game to overtime. In overtime, Hiralahu missed a 49-yard field goal on the Toronto possession, and on the Edmonton possession, Edmonton punter Jake Julian sent the ball 54 yards through the end zone for a rare walk-off rouge and a 31-30 Elks victory. Edmonton quarterback Trey Ford completed 16 of 25 passes for 325 yards and a touchdown. He also ran 6 times for 81 yards. Running back Javon Leake carried the ball 8 times for 128 yards, and wide receiver Jamarick Smith led the receivers with 4 catches for 98 yards. For Toronto, quarterback Nick Arbuckle completed 23 of 32 passes for 378 yards, a pair of touchdowns, and an interception. Running back Deontay McMahon carried the ball 10 times for 35 yards and a touchdown. He also caught 3 passes for 32 yards and a receiving touchdown. Wide receiver Makai Polk had 6 catches for 122 yards. And speaking of Makai Polk, he surpassed 1,000 yards on the season, another individual accomplishment for this time a team that will be in the playoffs.
Yep. Yeah, despite missing a couple.
Oh, I guess you're going to read the notes. Go for it.
No, go ahead. You do it. It's your segment. Sorry.
Oh, it's my segment. So, okay, despite missing 2 field goals in this game, Toronto kicker Lyram Hiralahu set the team record for the Argos this season with 55 field goals. That's pretty impressive. And then for Edmonton, wide receiver Eugene Lewis surpassed 1,000 yards receiving, so another 1,000-yard receiver on the season here in the CFL. Yep. And for an Edmonton team that, man, I mean, glad they got this win. I mean, yes, even though it's against my Argos, but good to see them get that win at the end of the year. Like we've been saying most of the season, you got to build around Trey Ford next year. This is a team that could have been in the playoffs had it not been for those early games of, losing by field goals, like 3 consecutive games, one of which we were at earlier this year. So the Elks got a lot to look forward to going forward. But, the Argos, they already knew they were going to be hosting a playoff game. This game didn't really mean anything to them standings-wise, so you throw in Arbuckle, you get some guys some stats, and you can just get ready to play the Red Blacks next week.
Yeah. So already in the first 2 games, we've seen a kicker set a record. We've seen a couple of receivers go over 1,000 yards, and we've seen a quarterback set a new franchise record with over 5,000 yards too. So it was a big weekend. For a lot of games, it really didn't mean much. They didn't have a lot of impact on the playoffs until you get to this next game that we're going to talk about right now.
All right.
On Saturday, it was the Winnipeg Blue Bombers at the Montreal Alouettes. In the second quarter, Charleston Rambo caught a touchdown pass in the end zone, and Winnipeg had a 10-6 lead. In the third quarter, Walter Fletcher scored on a short touchdown run that extended the Montreal lead to 20-9. Winnipeg answered with a touchdown pass to Nick Dembski, but Montreal still had the lead 20-19. In the fourth quarter, backup quarterback Davis Alexander scored on a 1-yard touchdown run, and Montreal increased their lead to 27-19. Winnipeg backup quarterback Terry Wilson also scored on a 1-yard touchdown run. A 2-point conversion failed, and Montreal maintained a 27-25 lead. But it was Winnipeg kicker Sergio Castillo who kicked the game-winning 51-yard field goal as time expired for the win, 28-27. Winnipeg quarterback Zach Collaros completed 24 of 32 passes for 331 yards and a touchdown. Wide receiver Kenny Lawler led receivers with 4 catches for 105 yards. and kicker Sergio Castillo was 5 of 7 on field goals, the longest from 53 yards. For Montreal, quarterback Cody Fajardo completed 16 of 20 passes for 171 yards and a touchdown. Backup quarterback Davis Alexander completed 7 of 9 passes for 100 yards. He also ran the ball 3 times for 4 yards and had a rushing touchdown. Running back Walter Fletcher carried the ball 12 times for 53 yards and a touchdown, while wide receiver Cole Speaker had 3 catches for 71 yards. Yeah, with this win, Winnipeg clinched the West Division and a first round bye in the playoffs, so good for them. That's why I'm wearing their shirt. This was the only game that really had any playoff implications. That was the only thing left. Who was going to win the West Division? And it was Winnipeg. And boy, they waited till the last second to make that happen. One other note I've got from the game: a wide receiver for Winnipeg, Ontario Wilson, surpassed 1,000 yards on the season.
Yeah, I mean, Winnipeg, what a come from behind story they had this year. You know, we talked about their struggles early on. Here we are at the end of the year, kind of where we wondered if they would get to. It was in doubt for a little bit, but they went on that 8-game stretch there for a bit.
Yeah, I think so.
And now to clinch the division, they get the home playoff game, which is a huge advantage for Winnipeg on that west side of the playoff bracket, which we'll talk about later, I'm sure. But good for them. And to beat the best team in the East, or at least the team with the best record. I don't know. Maybe things will change here in a couple of weeks. But, I mean, could this be the Grey Cup preview? Hard to say. I mean, if this game is any indication of what a potential Grey Cup game could be, I'm all for it. I'm there for an exciting game like that. I'm sure you'll have a gaudy shirt to wear at that game to support whatever team shows up, and I'm sure you'll make me wear the opposite team shirt. So
I'll probably be wearing my Toronto Argonauts shirt when we go there. I mean, you still got fans from all over the country or all over Canada coming to the game, representing their particular team at the game. But yeah, we'll see. I really think this could be a preview of the Grey Cup, but we'll see. I still want my Argos in the game, but boy, oh boy, this would be a rematch from last year, and Winnipeg's been in it 3 or 4 times in a row. I wouldn't count these two teams out.
I wouldn't either. I mean, but if anything, this playoff in particular is going to be super unpredictable. I think there's a lot that could happen, and like I said, I'm sure we'll talk about that playoff bracket. So, we'll see. Winnipeg, is just a well-run organization. You don't start off the way they started off this season, and it's all doom and gloom, and wondering if the ship would get right, and they did. They figured it out. They got their footing, and then they went on a tear. And that's the team we thought we were going to see all year. So just watch out for them Blue Bombers. They don't go down easy.
That's right.
Also on Saturday, I saw the Calgary Stampeders take on the Saskatchewan Roughriders. In the first quarter, Calgary quarterback Jake Maier found Clark Barnes in the end zone for a 33-yard touchdown, giving the Stampeders a 7-3 lead. In the second quarter, Maier found Cam Eccles in the back of the end zone, and Calgary extended their lead 14-3. In the fourth quarter, Mark and Michelle had a 67-yard catch and run for a touchdown that extended the Calgary lead to 24-6. Saskatchewan answered with a 19-yard touchdown pass to Jareth Stearns, but it was not enough as Calgary won this game 27-12. Calgary quarterback Jake Maier completed 19 of 26 passes for 293 yards and 3 touchdowns. Running back Dedrick Mills carried the ball 20 times for 128 yards. Wide receiver Clark Barnes had 3 catches for 90 yards and a touchdown. Saskatchewan quarterback Jack Cohn completed 10 of 21 passes for 100 yards and a touchdown, while quarterback Shea Patterson completed 5 of 12 passes for 56 yards. Running back Frankie Hickson carried the ball 12 times for 54 yards, and wide receiver Jareth Stearns had 4 catches for 69 yards and a touchdown. This was the 81st and final regular season game of the season. Hard to believe that we have talked about 81 games up to this point. Well, I talked about 3 games last week that you didn't, but that's beside the point. With this win, Calgary snapped a 9-game losing streak dating back to August 4th. They've gone 2 months without a win. Isn't that crazy to think about? Calgary has also missed the playoffs for the first time in 18 years. So, boy, oh boy, for Calgary to end the season like that, I mean, moral victory, I guess, and for Saskatchewan, I guess, you rest Trevor Harris. You get him ready for that big playoff game next week.
Yep.
So we'll see. Saskatchewan brings their A game for that against the BC Lions, who are on a bye this week.
Yeah, Saskatchewan had nothing to play for. They know they were going to host
Yeah.
the BC Lions next week. So, yeah, they got their backup some work, and that's the way it goes, man. I was happy for Calgary. That's one of my, other than Toronto, Calgary is one of my favorite teams, and so I'm always rooting for them. And they didn't have a very good season, but there's always next year.
And with Winnipeg winning, that game earlier, I wonder how much of an influence that had on Saskatchewan too, or if it wouldn't have mattered. If Winnipeg would have lost, would Saskatchewan have had to have won in order to then get the West Division? I think that's how that would have had to play out. So I don't know. Very interesting. I guess you. But well, we should know, Randy. It's CFL Weekly here at the World of Football. It's our job to know these things.
Hey,
but
I just
look,
got back from
regardless,
vacation.
yeah, and we're putting you back to work. That's how it works. Welcome to America, where that's unfortunately how that goes. And anyway, no. So moral victory, good for Calgary, and for Saskatchewan. I look forward to them going in with some of their starters they rested and putting together a good game this weekend. It does think that there wasn't more stakes this last week of the season, and it's more of a prep week for the actual, meaningful games that are about to start taking place that we'll get to, I'm sure, shortly.
Yeah. Only one out of the 4 games really meant anything, and but you never know at the end of the season. Is it going to come down to the wire, or is it going to be like this where everything's kind of set and the people are just playing out the rest of the schedule?
Right.
Okay, well, let's take a look at the final 2024 CFL standings. In the East Division, the Montreal Alouettes sit at 12-5-1, the Toronto Argonauts at 10-8, the Ottawa Redblacks at 9-8-1, and the Hamilton Tiger Cats finish the season with a 7-11 record. In the West Division, it's the Winnipeg Blue Bombers 11-7, Saskatchewan Roughriders 9-8-1, BC Lions at 9-9, Edmonton Elks at 7-11, and the Calgary Stampeders at 5-12-1. Looking ahead to the matchups in the divisional semifinal round this coming weekend. In the West Division, both of these games are on Saturday. In the West Division, it's going to be BC at Saskatchewan, with Winnipeg having a bye. So the winner of this game is going to go to Winnipeg the week afterwards. Then in the East Division, also Saturday, like I said, it's going to be Ottawa at Toronto. Winner of that game goes to Montreal the week after, and they're on a bye this week. All the playoff games and the Grey Cup game are going to be on CBS Sportsnet here in the States, so you won't have to pull out your laptop or your phone to watch these games. They're going to be on CBS Sportsnet, and that's great. I love it when it's on my regular TV, whether it's satellite dish or whatever, that I can see it without having to pull out my laptop.
And I can pull up the games on my YouTube TV. I get the alert whenever the CFL game's about to drop on CBS Sportsnet. So we will be ready for playoff weekend this weekend in the CFL. You bet your butt that I'll be watching that game, no matter where I'm at. So I'll probably be at a Taylor Swift themed hockey game on Saturday. So I'll probably be watching some CFL on my phone while that's happening.
Well, at least you got something to do at that themed game. Okay, let's talk about a little news from up in the CFL. CFL Commissioner Randy Ambrosie he announced that he's going to be stepping down in 2025 as soon as the CFL's Board of Governors hires a replacement for him. He became the commissioner back in 2017. He's been the commissioner for 7 seasons. He's a former CFL player and a Grey Cup champion. Some people love him. Some people hate him up there. I don't know. He tried, but never got to get a 10th franchise around. It looked really good for a while that they were going to bring in a team called the Atlantic Schooners out of Halifax. But then the city just didn't want to put up the money for that, and now they're talking about maybe Quebec City being another spot for a 10th franchise. And I know he tried really hard to get a 10th franchise up there during his 7 years as commissioner. And it just didn't work out. So, but I personally think he's done a decent job as commissioner. But that's the one thing that he didn't get done that I think he wanted to do.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the state of the CFL game. Look, I'm not in Canada, and I've seen the hate for Ambrose. As with any commissioner of any sports league, they're gonna if I mean, the guys there to do the job of the CFL owners, the guys there to, line their pockets with money. And as fans, everybody's going to have their hot takes and their opinions on him. Look, I have no opinion one way or other of the guy. I think maybe he handled some situations poorly. I think he's handled some stuff as well as a commissioner could. It does stink that they haven't been able to nail that 10th team kind of thing to even this league out. I'm sure we would love to see a 10th team or more maybe someday. We'll have to wait and see if the CFL can get that together. And I mean, he led them through. They had a crisis where at one point we thought the CFL was going to die. We thought the CFL was just going to, keel over and we'd have to bury it. But luckily, it's still kicking. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, you're one who hates change. I think a change of commissioner for this league could be a good thing. Just some new, fresh blood, fresh eyes on a sport that is beloved up there, and a sport that I think hard to say it's growing down here, but I think there are a lot more eyes with the internet now. I think this year, with a couple of the games, like with the game-ending rouges, and I think that's gotten some national attention, down here in the States. So I think there's more eyes starting to get up towards Canada, and some small part maybe to this show here, people looking up to Canada for some football action. But hey, whatever. You got to do what you got to do, Commish. And we'll just have to wait and see who the next guy is or gal to step up and, hopefully push the CFL towards the glory that we know it deserves to be in.
Yeah. Well, I thought as the fact that he was a former player up there, that he played in the league, he knows what it's like to be a player in the league, that he had the players' best interests in mind when he would make certain decisions. So, I think a lot of commissioners, Roger Goodell never played football that I know of. He never played in the NFL, so he doesn't understand sometimes what the players are going through. Randy Ambrosie at least did because he was a player and he won a Grey Cup up there. So I think that kind of gave him a little bit of an advantage in my mind, anyway. But people are still going to hate him just because he's a commissioner.
Maybe, but still, at the end of the day, if it's any role like the NFL type of commissioner or a commissioner down here in an American sports league or United States sports league, it's to take care of your ownership, take care of the people spending and making the money. So, I don't know. Yeah. I'm sure maybe there's somebody out there who's more more able to dive into exactly how his role works specifically. And I'm sure that with more accurate criticism or praise. But for us, I mean, just from our perspective where we're sitting here watching that, I don't know. Like I said, I ain't got a real opinion. I've seen good, I've seen some bad.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you brought this little fact to my attention. For the first time in CFL history, 2 Canadian players topped the rushing and receiving stats for the season. They've got some American players up there, and a lot of times they're the ones that have all the stats and all this, but it's great that this actually happened. Winnipeg running back Brady Oliveira is your rushing leader for the season with 1,353 yards, and BC Lions wide receiver Justin McInnes is the leader in receiving yards up there with 1,469 yards. So good for them. We love it when we see Canadian quarterbacks do well, like Nathan Rourke and Trey Ford. But there's a lot of Canadian players playing some great football up there, and it's great to see. I can't believe it's the first time in CFL history that both of those stat columns have Canadian players at the top. So I think it's great.
Right? Yeah. You think maybe in the early days they'd have maybe led those categories, but
yeah,
I mean, who knows? This was an official stat and an official post made by the CFL's official social media team. So I mean, we'll roll with it. So, I mean, it's cool. I mean, every year they hand out that most outstanding Canadian awards, so it's awesome to see them actually at the top of the stat list there. That's a pretty cool achievement.
One last thing, Adam. I want to thank you for holding down the fort last week and doing the show all by yourself. You did a fine job. I watched it from my hotel room down in Orlando. Thought you did a great job, and I wanted to show you something that I bought while I was down there. I was at Epcot.
For me? For doing such a great job?
Not for you. No. This is for me for allowing you to do the show by yourself last week. I found this at Epcot Center. They've got the they call it the World Showcase around that lake or whatever. And they've got all the different countries. And in the Canada section, I found this. I think this is pretty cool. Canada hat. So, yeah. No comment.
Okay. No comment. I got nothing.
Okay.
I was really
All
excited
right.
I was getting a gift. But, okay.
Your gift is I came home safely.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm sure. I mean, everybody watching appreciates it. That's for sure.
Uh-huh. Okay, well, that's all for this week. Tune in again next week when Adam and I will review the 2 first-round playoff games that are going to be played next Saturday. We'll be here throughout the CFL postseason as well as the 111th Grey Cup game in Vancouver on November 17th, where we will be in attendance. I might even be wearing this hat up there. I don't know. We'll see. So remember, folks, uh, some people may love football more than we do, but nobody, and I mean nobody, loves more football than Adam and I sitting here in Kalamazoo talking about CFL football. Until next time, I'm Randy Snow.
Go Argonauts! Let's do this. Let's get that championship 2024.
And we'll see you all next week somewhere around the 55-yard line.